You are now listening to the Serious Growth Podcast with your host, Leo Costa Jr.
Welcome to the Serious Growth Podcast, where the truth is told. For those of you who are viewing, you'll notice that, or may not notice, but I'm in my office today because we are adhering to some of the guidelines, social distancing. So I am not in my studio today. However, on the show today, we have Crystal Woods. Crystal, thanks for coming on, and how are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. Yourself?
Yeah, you know what? I'm still here. I'm doing fine. I mean, obviously, we talked at the top of the show with everything that's going on these days. When you ask somebody how they're doing, it really means something now. You just never know the way things are changing all the time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I've looked over your bio and I see here that you're a lot of things here. One of them is the author. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what kind of author or what kind of book are you writing, or have you written it already?
So I'm in the process of writing it, and I now have ample opportunity to finish it. It's almost done. It's a book on. It's my memoirs.
Oh, okay.
It's based on my child abuse growing up and being kidnapped, and how you can be successful and happy after child abuse.
Yeah. And something, the thing about that is, I doing these podcasts and just being around people, you realize that, we all have our own little story. Some are worse than others, but it's amazing the spirit of human nature, and being abused, like you're saying. I mean, it just goes to show you that, you can make it a possible positive thing at the end of the day, instead of going down the wrong path. So how old were you when all this was happening to you?
So my father kidnapped me at the age of 6. And he took off. We lived in Arizona, and he took off with me to Texas. And he abused me from the time I was 6 till I was 15. And we came back to Arizona probably when I was about 9. And he turned himself in, but the authorities let him go. I don't know what story he spun. And, eventually I ran away at 15, and he went to jail, and I was on my own and became a ward of the court. And then I got, out of that, and I grew up and had kids. And you absolutely can take something tragic and turn it into something positive. And I believe everything happens for a reason. If I could change my past, I absolutely would, but I can't. So there's no point in crying about it. And it's my cross to bear, because my purpose in life, I believe, is to help other people, one through child abuse and one through fitness. I believe it's multifaceted. So I couldn't help people with that if I hadn't lived it. So that's the purpose of the book. When I was 12 years old, I swore up and down I was going to write my story, and I titled it, and that's the title of the book. And hopefully I'll get it finished up during this quarantine and and have it published when we come out.
I just want to mention, when I was growing up, my parents went through a divorce. I'm assuming this is all because of divorce.
My parents did divorce, yes, before, and then I was kidnapped. Yeah,
and so my parents divorced when I was 5, and look, life is sometimes it's hard to figure out, and it's hard to always do the right things, and but the stuff that the way that my parents handled their divorce, and there's no right or wrong way necessarily. They do the best they can. That's kind of how I left it with myself. But I'll tell you what, those things back then really had an effect on me all the way until I was in my 40s.
Sure.
And before I just figured it out, and it was about the things I was doing along the way, even though I didn't want to be a victim, and it doesn't sound like you are, but I didn't want to use that, as the reason why, I was going to hell in the handbasket. And it sounds like you did the very same thing. So that says a lot about you, that you were able to turn that around, because that's some pretty brutal stuff that you're talking about right there. Okay, so when did you get into training or working out? How did that work for you in your life?
So in 2012, I think I was 36, 37. I had older children. I was married, and my marriage was kind of dwindling. And me and my ex had decided we were going to quit smoking as a last ditch effort to try to, fix things in our marriage. And I quit smoking cold turkey, went into the gym. I met my now fiance, Craig, and I got on the treadmill like every other girl who has no clue what she's doing, because I had never been in the gym before. And he came up to me and asked if I would be interested in learning how to lift. And I was very interested, because I fancy myself as capable of doing anything that a man can do. So he started showing me and helping me and teaching me. And then he started teaching me about nutrition. And he asked if I would be interested in doing a show. And I had no clue what that was. And so I declined. Yeah. And the seed took after about a month. And I came back and I said, okay. I said, I really want to have a focus so that I don't start smoking again. And I agreed, and he took me to a couple of shows so I could see what I was getting myself into. And I just really took to it. I really loved the drive and the internal push that you have to do in order to be able to succeed at it. Yeah.
It's one of those sports that it demands a lot, as you well know, to take it all the way to the stage. It's as relentless as it's like a suffer fest. We used to call it a suffer fest. All the dieting and all the stuff that you have to go through. A lot of people don't realize that. But I guess the reason why I'm asking, because now, were you an athlete like in school? Because what took you to the gym? Why didn't you go do yoga or something else? Why is it that you went to a gym first?
So when you smoke and you're thinking about quitting, one of the things that they say to everybody is, the second you quit smoking, you're going to gain a ton of weight. And I didn't realize at the time I was already a wee bit fluffy. And I didn't want
a wee bit fluffy?
A wee bit fluffy.
What does that mean? Were you 30 pounds, 100 pounds overweight? What is a wee bit fluffy?
So I'm 5'2", and when I got to stage, I probably lost 30 pounds.
Oh, okay. I mean, for being 5'2", you were a wee bit fluffy.
Yeah, I had some little
love
handles, little love handles and cellulite going on at the age of 37. I didn't want to gain more weight, so I went to the gym.
Okay, so
Pilates, yoga, all of that I really hadn't even thought about it, honestly.
Okay.
But when I did get to the gym, the first thing I did was go to the treadmill, because the truth is, the reason a lot of women don't lift is, for those that have never done so, it's not that they don't want to, it's that they don't want to look silly going out on the floor. And I would say it's not even so much about being ogled in the gym, as some women might say. I think it's more so we don't want to feel incompetent on the floor. Like, we don't know what we're doing, and we're this damsel in distress. So instead of doing that, we just go to the treadmill.
Interesting.
So for anybody that's listening, that's a trainer, that sees a woman out there on cardio, maybe gently offer to educate a little bit. I guarantee a lot of women would take them up on it.
That's a really smart point right there, because I was going to say something to you, because I'm thinking, okay, so this is with regards to your fiance now, and I'm kind of poking fun here a little bit, but okay, so he sees you on the treadmill, and then out of the blue, he's asking all these questions about you competing. I mean, I got a feeling he was pretty attracted to you, maybe just a little bit.
There was an attraction, I'm sure, and it went both ways. He did not recommend a show early. It was a couple weeks later. after
Yeah.
I had taken to lifting. He
Yeah.
had told me, you know, you're not that out of shape. You could do a show. And for
Yeah.
him, honestly, he really does love to see people succeed. And he's very vested when somebody's training with him and working with him for
Yeah.
weight loss, for strength.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's always been involved. I got 30 years. He's been involved in the competitive side of the industry
Yeah.
for a lifetime.
Actually, I've been the same way because you know, I'll see people that come through. I have a studio here still, one left, and when I see somebody come in like a male or female, you know, I look at them and I'm always thinking, okay, I wonder how they look on stage, you know, aesthetically and symmetrical. So I understand what you're saying. I was just kind of poking fun at you,
Oh,
poking fun just a
absolutely.
little bit. Yeah, but anyway, so okay, so then how long was it after you were doing the cardio before you actually started now training? Was it a few months afterwards?
No, so I started at that gym and it was probably 2 or 3 weeks after starting
Okay.
that he
Yeah.
approached me. And
Yeah.
I said, let's do it. And I just
Yeah.
went bored learning. And I'm I don't like to be told I can't do something. So like I couldn't
Yeah.
do one pull up and he would goat me and he would say, oh, you know, so and so can do like 12 pull ups. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I'll show you. And I
Yeah.
would come in every day and I would try to do pull ups until I could get them, and, you know, squatting and PRing and deadlifting and benching. I wanted to do it all.
Yeah, I think that's something pretty common among true athletes. You know, they tell them that they can't do something because that same thing happened to me. I was at a gym before I got into competing, and the guy that owned the gym, I'll never forget it. You know, he said, "You're probably better doing powerlifting than weightlift or a bodybuilding show. You just don't have the right genetics." I said, "Okay, I'm going to do the bodybuilding show." You know. Maybe that was his. Maybe that was secretly that was his tactic, but I doubt it. But
Reverse
the point,
psychology.
yeah. The point is, you know, I think athletes that really have that true mindset like that, that's just the thing that you need because you're competitive. You know,
Right.
and I wonder, how are you competitive? Was it your mom or your dad? Is there somebody in your family that's competitive, or were you just?
Not that I'm aware of. So having been kidnapped at 6, I wasn't really close with my father. It was there was no normalcy in my life.
Right.
I didn't stay in one school.
Yeah.
Probably junior high to high school, I did some volleyball and cheerleading. But as far as people that were around me, no one in particular. I think it's just my
Okay.
personality in general.
Yeah. Yeah. And was there a time when you knew you were competitive that way? I mean, did you recognize that before?
No.
You didn't? Interesting,
Not
huh?
until I was older did I realize that that was my competitive nature. I didn't realize it until later.
It's really, you know, life.
I lost you.
You just don't know exactly what you're capable of. And it's interesting. I don't know about you, but it's interesting when you do something that you never thought you would do, and yet there you are.
If you had told me back in 2012 I would be doing this, I would have called you a liar. I
Yeah.
never would have thought it in a million years. And I
Yeah.
absolutely love it.
Yeah. Well, once the bug bites, it's almost. I tell you what, for me, it's almost hurt me having that mindset because you get so driven, you know, to create perfection. I don't know. I'm just kind of speaking from my own experiences, but you know, having that strong of a mindset sometimes when you have things go, like, for example, I went through adrenal burnout before one of my competitions. I overrode all the signs that my body was trying to tell me. It was trying to shut me down, but I was so damn hell-bent on, this is pre-contesting, by the way, and I was so hell-bent on getting on stage that nothing was going to stop me. Nothing. Not even adrenal burnout, you know, type thing.
Wow.
But so if you're able to harness that, it works very well for you. So I think it's kind of a tricky, it's got to be something that you can be aware of, and it's hard to be objective sometimes to yourself, you know. But that was just, yeah, one of the experiences that I had. Okay, so you get into the gym, and well, how did your training regimen, how did it start out? Like, did he start you out with let's just have you just learn how to just do basic workouts for fitness, or how did he train you and teach you how to lift?
So everything revolves around benching, squatting, and deadlifting. And then there's accessory work thrown in. He started me off basically with the basics, but revolving around the 3 lifts.
Right.
Like with benching, I started with just the bar because I had no stability and I was very weak. And as I got stronger and my body became more competent in being able to handle loads, he increased weights and he increased difficulty in my programming. Our programming now is quite different than it was then in the intensity. I also do powerlifting, which I haven't done in a while competitively, but we also do powerlifting. So our programming now still revolves around those 3 big lifts, but we have bodybuilding weeks and we have powerlifting weeks, and we hit all kinds of rep ranges and tempos. Yeah. So it's everything. Yeah.
I think is your fiance's name Chris?
Craig.
I was close. If I was 40, I would have nailed it. Okay, Craig.
Yes.
All right. I think he's really, I think he's a really smart. He took a real smart approach because when I first started training, a lot of us did this. You try everything, and then what you end up learning, and he just shortened your curve. What you end up learning is you come back to some basic movements, So he put you on a much faster learning curve than probably if you would have done it on your own. Because I kind of learned. I had some help, but I learned some of this and a lot of it on my own. Trial and error, because I wanted to be able to understand how not only how I got the result, but how to reproduce it. But what we ended up learning, what you were doing, is it's coming down to some basic stuff that's your foundation, and then everything else you build around that. That's what it sounds like you guys did.
I was very lucky coming into this industry and into the sport. Craig is extremely knowledgeable. Had I done it on my own, I probably would have done everything ass backwards.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that don't know any better do. And there's a lot of bad information out there. So you end up getting your hands on that, and then you have to start over. He's very knowledgeable, and he's learned from some of the best people in the industry. And now we both surround ourselves with the people in the industry that they're the ones that founded it. They're the ones that are writing the textbooks, the scientists and the educators. We surround ourselves with those people.
Yeah.
So all of our information we know is good. And he continues. He doesn't just say, okay, well, I know everything. He continuously is taking classes and learning and going to seminars and constantly educating himself on the newest science.
Yeah. And that's a mark of a legit trainer. One of the things that pisses me off coming back, and I got back to the industry because a couple of things. I started reading Google, and because I had retired from the sport. I've been in the business forever, competing all over the place. I I got away from it for 13 years. But then it never leaves you. When you get bit by this bug, I'm sure you understand totally, it never leaves you, and it comes back and it bites you some more and says, come on, anyway, it challenged me to come back at the age of 54, and I did. Hey, the point is this, the misinformation that you're talking about is exactly the reason why I'm back in the industry, podcasting and doing this stuff, because I saw some of the stuff that I was seeing and reading it, and I thought, oh my goodness. I mean, some of these people the clients that they're training have no idea how dangerous these guys and girls are, and that I thought, well, how can I, instead of bitching about it the whole time, how can I make a difference? So my way was to come in and start doing this, podcasting, and, talking to people and talking about, like, you guys are legit. I can tell right in, 3 minutes or 4 minutes when I'm talking to people, I can tell. Because I've been around for 100 years, I know this stuff backwards and forwards, and I know the way he set you up. I can tell the approach and the tone that, and the fact that he and you guys are still wanting to learn after all these years, that's huge, because too many get set in their own ways. They think, oh, and that's when this gets really dangerous. You have to be able to have that motivation and desire to keep on learning, to keep on expanding, because things do continue to change. That's kind of the point of that. All right, so we know that you did the training, but what was your what was the approach and strategy for nutrition? How did that happen?
So he does not believe in meal plans, and after learning things, I do not either. So what he does is macros, IIFYM, which does not mean you get to eat whatever you want. It just means that you still need to eat quality, dense food, but that you're able to pick and choose what foods those are. You don't have to eat fish and asparagus every meal, every day while you're, prepping for a show. So he put me on macros. He gave me a bunch of information for food choice ideas. And there's a learning curve with learning macros. If someone doesn't know macros, they really have to sit down and they have to be their own advocate, right? You are your biggest advocate. It's your body. So you need to educate yourself and not just listen to somebody who's telling you what to do. Yeah. So I started educating myself on foods and nutritional values and reading the back of every label. So I started trying to pick whole foods, less processed, but you can't escape it fully. And just really hitting those macros on point as close as I could every day. And slowly the weight was coming off. Now, I didn't have drastic amounts of weight to lose. So our goal was maybe 1 to 1.5, maximum 2 pounds a week. And I was losing very well. I would wake up every day and see a change in the mirror. And it's amazing to be able to see that. Yeah. And as my body would change, I was planning on doing a show. I was in prep. So as my body would change, my macros would change. If I was, steady and staying the course and my body was responding on point, my macros didn't change too much. If my body started to freight train, losing weight too fast, which it has done in the past, my macros would get increased. And if I hit a wall, we would lower them.
Yeah. Well, here, for the sake of, for the viewers that are watching, because I like what you're saying, but if you can, because I'm going to interject something here. When you say macros, were you counting calories at all?
So I never bother with thinking about how many calories I'm eating. I use my FitnessPal. I don't do it manually. I know some people like to keep track of their protein, carbs, and fats manually. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would track protein, carbs, and fats. So he would give me numbers for each of those, like just throwing numbers out there, 150 protein, 200 carbs, and 50 fat.
Okay, let me sub you right there. I know what you don't. I know what you're saying, but I want the people that are listening to you to understand what your process was. Okay, so how did he know how many of those macros to tell you? See, when you're trying to lose weight, maintain weight, or gain weight. So in this case, let's just say that you were getting ready for a competition. So he's giving you these numbers. How does he know those are the right numbers for you to lose 1 to 2 pounds a week? I guess that's what I'm really saying.
So now he had never worked with me before, right? So He doesn't know exactly how my body works. So What he does is he takes my age, my weight, all of these little variables that are very individual. Okay. And you put it into a calculator. Okay. And you figure that out, and you start with this set of numbers. Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then I would check in a week later. Okay. And we would see, okay, well, I had a learning curve, right? I had to learn my macros. So once I got really consistent with my macros, then we see, okay, is she losing weight? Right. Yes, she's losing weight. It's at a nice pace. So we're just going to coast. We're going to leave the numbers where they are. Yeah. If I hadn't been losing weight, then he would have reduced my macros. And that varies whether you drop carbs, whether you drop fat, all of those depend on the individual.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. No, my macros wouldn't necessarily work for this woman sitting next to me.
Right. So he was basically saying, okay, Crystal, what I want you to do is take 150 grams of carbs and 30, I'm just making numbers up.
Right.
150 grams of carbs, 30 grams of fat, 15 grams of protein. That's essentially the numbers you were getting, correct?
Right. So he gave me a set of numbers, and if they brought results, you leave it. And if it's not, then you start playing with the numbers. And I know a lot of people, like people that have never done this before, right? They're new to it. They hire a coach. It takes a season, off season and a prep season, for a coach to really get to know your body. Because everybody's bodies respond differently. But a lot of people will coach hop, not for really any particular reason, but let's say one coach does macros and another coach does a meal plan, or one coach works with natural organizations and one coach works with NPC. So a lot of athletes will say, okay, well, this was great and I did well with you, but I want to see what this is like. So they coach hop, but what they don't realize is now that new coach has to learn your body. Yeah. And it's not that this coach did anything wrong, but that coach isn't really going to do any better. They have to get to know your body. And the only way you're going to be better is you're already in a good spot. Yeah. And so I get that. Yeah, I get that. And the funny thing is, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, because I'm just the opposite of you. I'm kind of the opposite, but the same, because I'm all about the number. Because I see, when you're talking about, it's just a different way to track something. Because when you tell me 150, whatever those numbers are in the macros, I know that there's, for protein, there's 4 grams for every, you know what I mean? There's the, so I can tell you how many calories you're taking in. So I come at it from a different way, because I am about caloric intake. I believe that when you know it to that degree, again, this is my own personal way of doing it, because I'm not saying yours is, better or worse. I'm not saying that at all. It's just a different way to get to the same result. But I think it's really interesting, because I never did that. I never worked on concentrating on the macros, but yet at the end of the day, I was counting calories, which were the macros. It was broken down by the various macros. Now, I'm curious to know, though, did you say you weren't really concerned about protein intake? No, we are concerned with protein intake. So where you were saying you were basically tracking calories. Yep. So let's say in the beginning, somebody's having, they're going through that learning curve of macros. The primary concern is just keeping the protein high. Yeah. So let's say somebody, let's say they were low on their protein and, they didn't get enough carbs in. Like, they could get more protein, and at the end of the day, it's calories in, calories out. Okay. But I wouldn't want their protein to drop off, because I want to keep those muscles building. Right. Yeah, we're kind of speaking the same language in a different way. It's just a different way. And I think it's interesting. I mean, there's not one way to do it, for everybody. And that's what's cool about this thing. So what was your strategy as far as how many grams of protein do you think that you should be eating, and how do you figure that? Well, I'm always, even on off season, I like protein. I'm a Texan. So we like our meat. I eat about 150 grams of protein per day, and the average, general population maybe doesn't need to eat so much protein, but based on my age, height, weight, all those variables, plus my activity level, I weight train 5 days a week. We keep my protein up. Okay, so let me ask you this, if you don't mind me asking, because I'm an old school guy. Chivalry still exists with me. I'm not supposed to ask how much you weigh, but I'm going to anyway, because I'm like that. So how much do you weigh? Because I'm trying to get how many grams of protein you're actually eating per 1 pound of body weight. So in my off season, my body does like to hover around 126 pounds, which is where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And on stage, I go down to about 106. So I'm about 20 pounds up, and I'm at 20% body fat.
So you're eating a little over 1 gram per 1 gram, 1 pound of body weight of protein, little over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. That's how I figure this stuff out. I get like that. There. You're making me happy now. Okay. Now, when it came to cardio, what's your strategy? There's a lot of, different. I talk to people who do no cardio, and then I talk to some that do a ton of it. So how much cardio do you do in the off season versus pre-contesting?
In the off season, I do none. In competition prep, it's minimal and only if necessary. So, and I'm getting older, so I think, I'm not sure, and I hope not, but I'm pretty sure I'm perimenopausal at this point. Mm-hmm. And so things are, changing, and your metabolism changes. So this last competition season where I met you, I did do more cardio than I had previously. Mm-hmm. But ordinarily, I don't do a lot. Maybe twice a week, and I usually do HIIT for 30 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was, I was that guy that tried everything because I wanted to feel it myself. And that actually ended up paying big dividends for me when I started doing personal training. But I remember doing at first, I did anything from when I was pre-contesting, anything from 1 hour, 30 minutes a day to 3 hours. It depends because I try things on, I do one strategy for a certain pre-contest, so I could validate that or question whether or not but I even did as much as 3. I had the mentality, well, if this is good, this must be better, not knowing that, the more cardio you did, the more muscle burned off your body. But I did learn that after one show. That taught me that lesson really quick.
But then you got into this, a long time ago. So there wasn't a lot of information then.
Right.
So you were really playing around with your own body to see what worked and what didn't. And that's what a lot of people did. Yeah.
It's like our bodies were our laboratories. Everything was, you go into the gym as your lab, and then your body was just the experiment, and that's what you did. It's kind of interesting that way. Okay. So, after you started training, how many years did it take before you got up on stage, and how many years have you been training since then? I mean, competing.
So, I started training in 2012, and I went from fluff to buff in 8 months and on to stage.
Fluff to buff. I like that. Which category do you compete in?
So I started in figure, actually. I competed in figure up until, oh God, don't get me to lying. I did figure up until about 3 years ago, I think. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong, but I think it was about 3 years ago. The look of figure changed. It outgrew me. Yeah. And that's just not, the current look of figure is not my body type. So I am very competitive, as we discussed, and I very much love the industry and the sport. And I said, okay, well, if I want to stay competitive, I'm going to have to do bikini. And I had been judging shows for a while and everything. I never thought I would do bikini. And, I have kids and I have a son that's 24, and I saw a bikini as just a little distasteful at the time. Mm-hmm. And when I decided to switch categories and I went into bikini, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to make this tasteful. It's a sport. I'm an athlete, and this is going to be done with class and respect, and I'll help to change the category. Oh. And I went into bikini, and I loved it. I had a lot of fun with it, and that's where I compete currently. I do still hold figure pro status, but I haven't competed in it in quite some time.
So do you hold that, because obviously you competed in the IMBA, right? IMPMBA?
Correct.
Okay. Now, are you a pro status with that organization, or do you have more than one organization that you have that status?
I'm a pro in multiple organizations.
Okay.
Yes.
Uh,
I've been a pro with the WNBF and the NGA. I did relinquish my pro status in both of those. I'm a pro in the ANBF, the INBA, PNBA, the OCB, and the GBO.
okay, so you've done a lot of competing.
I have. I've done 32 shows from
Holy,
2012 until now.
amazing.
And
A
I've
lot of,
taken,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish.
I believe in off seasons, meaning not just a couple of months, but I believe in a full off season. I have a great balance of mental and emotional and physical. So I do love my stage look, but I also know long term it's not healthy. And I'm
Yeah.
a woman and my body requires more body fat for health.
Yeah.
And I do believe there's more to life than just the stage. There's also traveling and seeing the world. So I do take off seasons so that I can try to improve and refine upon my body. So in 2015, I took an off season, full year. It was like a year and a half before I got back on stage. And I thankfully had decided that this year was going to be an off season for me as well.
Oh, yeah.
So since 2012 to now, I've taken 2-3 years off.
Yeah. I think that's a really smart approach. One of the things I've been, I've done a lot of these podcasts from the athletes that competed in Las Vegas. And I always ask these kinds of questions. I think too many of the athletes I talk to, they compete too often. That's just my opinion. So
Yes.
I think what you're doing is a really smart thing. Okay, so what got you into being a dental assistant? How did you pick that industry?
I fell into it.
Really?
Yeah. I moved to New Jersey from Texas in 2002. It was February, right after 9/11. And March of 2002, I started working at my office. I've been there 18 years now. I started at the front desk as a receptionist, and they asked me if I would be interested in working as a dental assistant. And I said yes. So I went to school, and then a dental assistant can only do so much. So I became certified, and then I became registered. And that allows me to work chairside with the patient on my own without the dentist.
I see.
So, yeah, so I just kind of fell into it.
Yeah, and then you just took it and made it even better for you. You just didn't stop right there. You just kept going to become a registered dental assistant. Cool deal.
Yeah.
And I see there that you also are a stage coach. How did you learn how to pose? Although the bikini girls don't really pose, right? Like the figure, or do you work with all categories?
I work with all categories, and the posing is definitely different. When I first started, there's no posing coaches in my area, and there are not a lot of posing coaches in general. So I basically went to YouTube and I was just looking at videos and, becoming a judge and seeing people get on stage. And some people get on stage, they have no clue what they've gotten themselves into. They don't know how to properly pose. They didn't even know that they needed a posing coach. They just really don't educate themselves.
Yeah.
So I would be very embarrassed for people and feel bad for them. And I'm like, we really need more posing coaches, and we need someone in this area. And everybody was telling me, you really should start taking clients. And I started taking clients and just showing girls how to present themselves in the best light, how to hide their flaws, how to present their strengths, and just really go out there and have a good time and show it off.
Yeah. The thing about that is, and I was lucky that I had some really good direction when it came to that. I learned a lot of my stuff. Have you heard of that movie called Pumping Iron or
Yes.
Stay Hungry? Yeah, Arnold. And there was one, I forget which one it was, but it talked about how he hired a ballet instructor. And, some of that stuff, I learned it from actually that right there with posing, because he made a lot of sense. One of the things that always stuck in my head, which I didn't see as I was competing a lot of, was that Arnold said, you have to be aware of the fact that you're always being watched. especially when you're transitioning. And a lot of people don't do that. They just move from one to the other, right?
Yep. It
Yeah.
needs to be very fluid.
Yes.
It's like a dance.
Yep.
It's just like dancing. Even the men need to be very graceful and fluid in their transitions. And a lot of women in particular, when they transition, and this is it's not really a secret, people know, but they still do it anyway. Women tend to tuck their hips under them. And when you do that, it doesn't present your glutes in the best light.
Yeah, right. I can see that.
Yeah. And once the judges see it, they can't unsee it.
Right.
And I also tell people, even when you're backstage, you're always being watched. So whenever you're moving around and you have your robe off, move around with awareness to your body, no matter what you do. Yeah.
And the thing about that, just, you saying that, one of the things, I have a creed, I talk about when I do these video posting, it's a serious growth creed that I have, and one of the things is discipline to the nth degree. And you have that because, you're making sure that you're aware of all these things that most people are just oblivious to, and those that really become successful on stage or wherever, it doesn't even matter if it has to do with competing, just in life in general. When you start paying, when you're a student of the game and when you question things and you have discipline and you have warrior mindset, those are, for me, that's what I mean by my creed. I developed this creed from all this stuff that I did to get on stage. Bodybuilding taught me a lot. It taught me just about everything, really, to be honest with you. And I was an athlete, more traditional sports, but nothing taught me more life lessons than bodybuilding did. Because of all these things, I knew that if I wanted to get better, I had to pay attention to all that little stuff that you're talking about.
Devil in the details.
Yeah, devil. That's like where that old saying comes from. But it's really interesting with the posing like that. I found it really odd when I came back into the industry. Like when I first started, everybody choreographed their own routine or had somebody help them with a choreographed routine. And when I came back, after that layoff, it's like, what the hell happened? I mean, they just turned music on and they're just moving,
Right.
Because we used to have like a trophy. You used to get a trophy for being the best poser back in those days, The other thing that I know that, and maybe you experienced this, is did you find that, because most athletes that are on stage when they are posing, they go too fast. And one of the things, best advice that I got from one of the people that work with me, they said, look, slow down. When you go on stage, do less poses. Don't try to learn a bunch of them. Learn about 4 poses, because you have to do mandatories, but learn 4 poses in your choreographed routine and slow down. Because you're going to think that you're going slow and you're still going to be going too fast. And you know something? Absolutely right. And you talk about a distraction. I mean, you can't see. I mean, it's a distraction to the judges as well as the audience because they don't get a chance to see you at any pose. You're off running and doing 3 more poses, Did you notice that? Go ahead.
Absolutely. When people get nervous, and this is for amateurs and seasoned pros as well. People get nervous, and when you get nervous, your heart's pounding, your adrenaline's going, and you speed up.
Yep.
And then you do have people that they're so scared to be on stage, but they want to be there so desperately, and they speed up, and they're like, okay, let me just get through it. I teach all of my clients, when you strike a pose in your head, I want you to count slowly, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi.
Yeah.
2 things. 1, if you don't hold a pose, you can't properly execute it and the judges can't see it.
Yep.
And 2, if you speed up, especially for the women in high heels, if you speed up, you risk faltering in your heels and making a mistake.
Yeah.
So if you slow down and every movement is methodical and deliberate, you're much better off.
Yeah, it's funny because, my first show that I did, of course, I'm, at this point, I'm like a maniac. I practice and practice and practice. I pose a routine, practice, and I'm backstage now, this first show, and oh my God, right before I go out on stage, I forgot my whole damn routine. And I went out there, I couldn't turn back at this point, I went out there, and you know something, Crystal, I don't even remember my routine. I came off stage, I'm thinking, what the hell happened? You know, I had people coming up and say, oh, you posed really well. I'm thinking, oh my God, I didn't even remember that thing. But my
Yep.
training, the repetitions got me through, obviously, you know, all that
Right.
muscle memory, because
Yeah.
everything was just too fast. I was freaked out. I mean, I used to drop classes because I didn't want to get in front of people. And here I am in posing trunks and doing something I never thought I'd do, you know. But I'll tell you what, you know, as the time went on, and, you know, 12 years later when I was competing, I had so much fun because everything slowed down and I could really enjoy not only my routine, I could enjoy the crowd and play
Yes.
to them. And that was a whole different experience then.
So you know what I tell people so there's a video of me on YouTube that I posted, and it's my first show. And I had my face was horrible. I had no smile. I was terrified.
Yeah.
And I had practiced a million times. I was perfect in practice. But when I got on that stage, I hit 7 poses in one spot, and it was awful.
Yeah.
But I put it up there for a reason. And I tell people all the time, even seasoned pros still get nervous. It just changes. So when I first started, I would be fine backstage all day. And when I got to that curtain, I felt like I wanted to throw up. And I was so nervous. Now, when I compete, I'm nervous all day backstage, and I just want to get to the stage.
Right.
And when I'm behind that curtain, I flip a switch. My alter ego comes out. I strut on stage, and I show off my hard work, and I have fun, and I enjoy the audience and the judges. And when I come back off stage, I take a deep breath and say, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah.
You're always nervous. That never goes away, but it changes. You do get better.
Yeah. And they call that in sports, the game slows down. You know, everything's the same. You still get the butterflies. It's just I totally get that. By the way, one of the things I learned about myself is that I always forgot my damn routine just before I went out on stage. So I didn't panic anymore, you know? It was like, after the second one, I go, how can this be? You know, I'm you know, right before I go out, it was like I forgot I didn't even know where to start. It was like that. And yet I go on stage, and just like what you're saying, a switch flipped, and I was somebody else for that moment in time, and it was awesome, and it was addicting, and I couldn't wait to do it again. You know, that's how it gets, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so I see now that you're a public speaker, and so what it looks and sounds like you're doing is you're taking your life experiences along with the stuff that you've learned through your sport, and you're passing this forward to other people. So what's the main message you have? Is there a common message that you're trying to send out there when you're speaking?
So my public speaking is okay. So my child abuse and my fitness lifestyle is actually one platform, because like you were saying before, fitness really helped you with everything in life, right? And I also believe in that, and I believe fitness, not just stage, but just getting into fitness in general, it really does help in every facet of your life. And I've noticed that a lot of people that are in the competitive side of the industry all come from some traumatic experiences. And so my public speaking is mostly on child abuse, and to help people to navigate that, to teach them that there's a silver lining in everything, that it doesn't have to consume them, and that there is success and happiness after, and that forgiveness plays a big role in that. And forgiveness is touchy, and forgiveness is in everyone's own time. So everyone's at different stages of forgiveness. But for me, that's what really helped me, was just accepting what happened, the forgiveness of it, and then finding silver threads within that lining to build my own path. And fitness plays a big role in that. So that's what my public speaking is all about. I want to do more speaking with kids in, group homes that are wards of the court. I'd like to speak with more adults and different areas just to help people. That's my purpose in life, is to help people to realize that this tragedy doesn't define them, and it doesn't make up who they are.
Yeah, when I had some strokes 8 years ago that paralyzed me, but one of the things I came up with at that point was, first of all, if I didn't have my athletic background, especially bodybuilding, I wouldn't have made a full recovery. And
Absolutely.
I came up with in my book, I said, adversity, because life's going to kick your ass. It's just going to do that. That's just part of life, right?
Yep.
But it was like, I told myself, this adversity is either going to define me or destroy me. And you have the same approach, and I think that's a really smart thing to tell your people, and you're living proof of that. And I tell you what, I can tell right off the bat that you're passionate about what you do. That's very attractive to me as someone who's in the audience listening to you. So I think you're awesome, and I applaud you for what you're doing, because it's needed. There are a lot of people out there that are struggling in some way, and you've made it your purpose, and you found a niche market that you can really help. So I'm proud of you, because it's hard to find. It's hard to find that in one's life, to be on message and have the enthusiasm that you have. I mean, I have 65 years of age, Crystal. I was lucky that I got into something that I had passion for, because I'm still excited about the stuff that I do as much today as I was when I first started. And how lucky is that to have that in your life? Isn't that right?
It's wonderful, because not a lot of people do have that, and not a lot of people do find their purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's absolutely huge when you do.
Yeah. Hey, listen, before we go here, is there anything, like with your book, anything that you would like to promote on this show, and tell us where we can get it if you want to?
I have a website, writesandweights.com, Wrights, WRITES, and weights.com. If you're interested in training, nutrition, posing, everything is on there, as well as my public speaking page and the page to my book when it comes out. My book is titled A Child's Not So Sweet Life. Again, it's not finished, but it will be published. Hopefully, I'm going to wait until all of the things going on in the world are over and people have gotten back to normal. But that will be published through the Zebra Ink and will be available on Amazon, and I'll put all that out when it is. And I just want to tell everybody, everything that we're going through right now, we are going to get through it. Try to keep your sanity. Create a little bit of a routine within your quarantine, and just try not to stress. I know that's easier said than done. I'm stressing a little also. Just keep moving, keep motivated, go for walks, just do what you can at home. It's not the end of the world. We are going to get through it. We've gotten through worse with less. So we will weather the storm. Yeah,
good information. And listen, I really appreciate the fact that you came on. You're a lovely individual, and I can't wait to maybe cross roads again with you. And when something comes up that you want to come back on the show, like when your book comes out and you like to promote that, please reach out and we'll do this again.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Take care of yourself. Okay.
You too. Be safe.
Be healthy.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Serious Growth Podcast. For more episodes like the one you just listened to, subscribe to us on your mobile podcast app and leave us a review. If you'd like to reach out, you can find us online at seriousgrowth.com. Until next time, train smart and train hard.